Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Technology Director, Pivotal, Juergen Hoeller.
All right. Hello, everybody, from my side. Hello, Austin. So my pleasure to do a bit of a preview on what we're working, a state-of-the-art, a recap, and a bit of a preview. Of course, as the Spring Framework project lead, I very much represent a core framework perspective. But even within all our efforts at the core framework level, of course, we're very theme-driven, very aligned with themes and trends in the industry. So our common tagline, modern software at the intersection of architecture and people. This is very much what Spring has always been about, ever since its inception. Spring is essentially a toolbox for architectures, for architects, where we are empowering development teams to build, to handcraft architectures according to the business needs, the business purposes, and integrating with all the services, the infrastructure in the enterprise. This is, of course, 15 years ago. The enterprise landscape looked quite different from what it looks like today, but Spring is still very much hanging on to this core mission, to this core role of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Modern-day Spring is enabling a, modern-day developer experience for distributed architectures on the Java virtual machine, in a nutshell. And distributed architectures, of course, they can come in many flavors. We are talking about modular monoliths, just interacting with enterprise messaging systems, with the common data stores, all the systems that we need in order to turn our business applications into kind of real-life happenings. We are also talking, of course, about microservice architectures. We are talking about interconnected processes in potentially a very fine-grained fashion. So it's a very diverse landscape. The developer experience that we mean comes in many flavors as well. It comes with, of course, first-class support for the Java language, for the Kotlin language these days. It comes in an annotation-based component model. It comes with a functionally styled programmatic registration and interaction model, in particular a focus in recent Spring Framework generations. And it comes with a choice of runtime stack options, most prominently, of course, the servlet-based Spring MVC versus the reactive Spring Webflux stack. So many flavors of it all. Our Spring Framework 5.2 release, recently gone generally available, and the upcoming Spring Boot 2.2 release very much continue along those lines. They take our common Spring 5 themes to the next level, and a particular focus of these releases, of the Spring Framework 5.2 release, is to open up new possibilities in terms of architectural options. So we go into territory that we haven't quite been in before, and we allow for the latest innovations in the Java ecosystem at large to become a part of modern-day Spring-based applications. There's really three main themes along those lines. Many of our efforts, in our recent efforts, go along those lines. The developer experience we've already mentioned is, of course, very much about embracing the latest language-level innovation, both in Java itself and in other languages on the JVM, such as Kotlin. The distributed architectures, of course, referring back to them again here, is very much about embracing, enterprise infrastructure in all its flavors, right? And all the innovation and the potential game changes that come along from there. Runtime efficiency is, of course, particularly important in the Java space for making sure that the interaction between the application frameworks, the Java virtual machine, the underlying operating system, the underlying host system, the underlying cloud infrastructure, that it is as efficient as possible. We have a strong focus on performance improvements in recent Spring Framework and Spring Boot generations. We are, of course, also looking forward to where the Java infrastructure will be in over the next few years to come. So let's break this down a bit more. Oops. There we go. So this is just a bit of a visual impression of what we do in Kotlin these days. This is very, very recent. Spring Framework 5.2 comes with quite comprehensive Kotlin coroutine support for Webflex in particular. This is a good example, a fine example for a language-level innovation, a language-level feature in Kotlin interacting with our common Webflex stack underneath the covers, providing an interesting way of consuming the reactive facilities that we developed over recent years through a style of implementation that is actually quite imperative. So these are Kotlin coroutines, also called suspending functions. Very sweet also in terms of expressiveness, even more so if you take into account that it interacts with the underlying Webflex stack, providing full support for all the reactive goodness, of course, the reactive stream spec pressure model, etc. We have a strong focus on infrastructure integration recently. We have RSocket as a very promising binary messaging protocol that we are embracing with strong industry support at this point already. RSocket is an interesting piece of technology. It comes with a whole range of interaction models, predefined interaction models, support for all sorts of transport layers. It comes with a set of unique features, session resumption, stream-level back pressure for a start. By the way, it comes with a Reactor-based Java client, so it's also very much aligned with Project Reactor and the reactive infrastructure that we've already been embracing in recent Spring generations. Somewhat related, we are also embracing R2DBC, a currently Pivotal-sponsored open source offering, an abstraction for reactive relational database access. Basically a sort of JDBC rethinking for reactive streams-based architectures with all the goodness that comes with it, in particular back pressure support, and of course non-blocking interactions to begin with. We provide reactive transaction management, an interaction between Spring Framework 5.2's core transaction support and Spring Data's transaction manager implementations. There's reactive transaction support not only for R2DBC, but also for Mongo and Neo4j. As for runtime efficiency, there's a couple of very recent innovations in the Java virtual machine space. Of course, some of it comes from OpenJDK itself, our main line. Java, of course, is still our primary implementation language that we focus on, and OpenJDK is the primary runtime environment that we interact with for most Spring-based purposes. So OpenJDK, of course, has the OpenJDK 11 long-term support release in the meantime, which is our a main guideline. It's not our baseline. Our baseline is still Java 8, JDK 8. There's also a very recently OpenJDK 13 went generally available. And with the Spring Framework 5.2 boot to the 2 generation, we allow you to choose to use JDK 13 underneath a Spring Boot to the 2 based application, Spring Framework 5.2 based application, at this point already. Right? So it's basically a choice of 8, 11, or even the very recent 13 if there's something particularly interesting for you in there. At the same time, there's a very interesting not so traditional JVM offering from Oracle. GraalVM had its first GA release this year. GraalVM is a sort of a new kind of virtual machine offering with a next generation JIT compiler that also made it into recent OpenJDK releases as an option, just allowing us to run our workloads, Spring-based applications, Spring-based workloads in a more efficient manner without any changes, any constraints, any considerations. A very transparent benefit simply through upgrading to OpenJDK and choosing a corresponding setup for it. GraalVM has many other interesting features, the Truffle language adaptation framework, but in particular also a native image facility. Graal Native is a tool for turning certain kinds of Java-based applications into native images, coming with a couple of characteristics such as very immediate startup, lower memory consumption, with some trade-offs and many constraints in place. And we are very much tracking the effort already, collaborating with the GraalVM group at Oracle towards a well-defined arrangement for using Spring-based facilities, building certain kinds of Spring-based applications with a native image deployment model in mind. All right, so much for our three themes, and we continue along those lines. So expect Spring Framework 5.3 and Spring Boot 2.3 to continue what we've started, RSocket++, a completion of our Kotlin coroutines offering, and so forth. And of course, there's always new JDK generations coming along. By the time we will have OpenJDK 14, 15 in all likelihood, and we will have the GraalVM 20 release, a very important milestone that we intend to integrate with next year. Now, I'll leave you with a couple of breakout sessions. Recommendations for sessions today, all of them are later today, towards the themes that I've been mentioning, such as Kotlin, RSocket, R2DBC, and the hint at the GraalVM native image model. And with that said, it's my pleasure to welcome Ben onto the stage.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm here to talk about the state of JVM runtime support. As we all know, this last year has been really interesting for the JVM. The changes to the licensing that Oracle has done has led to a ton of confusion in the market, right? Oracle has decided that they're not going to do public updates to their JVM any longer. And effectively, what this means for you is that if you want to run Oracle's JVM in production, you have to have a commercial relationship with Oracle. As you might predict, there are a ton of companies out there who immediately sense this as a business opportunity. And so we've already seen fragmentation in the market. There are so many OpenJDK variants now coming to the market. And here at Pivotal, we don't really think that this is going to be a great thing, right? Many of us are old enough that we actually saw fragmentation in the Java market the first time round, and it didn't go great. So we want to make sure here at Pivotal, our view is that this isn't positive. What we want actually is a strong, healthy, and most importantly, unified Java ecosystem, right? We want consistency so that your Spring application or any of the other frameworks that you might use inside of the Java ecosystem run exactly the same, run consistently, regardless of the platform that you've chosen to deploy them on. This is how we view Pivotal winning, right? That Java stays strong. And Pivotal itself is putting its money where its mouth is. I'm proud to announce that we are platinum sponsors of Adopt OpenJDK. For those of you who don't know what this is, Adopt OpenJDK is a free and open binary distribution of OpenJDK, right? It is built from the same community-sanctioned GA tags as all of the rest of these kinds of distributions, all of these variants. It applies 0 patches, right? And this aligns really, really well with our view on how OpenJDK should be run and should be used. And the really nice thing about Adopt OpenJDK is it turns out it's really, really popular, right? Already there are 77 million downloads and Docker pulls of Adopt OpenJDK JVMs. This is a huge number given how small, how young the Adopt OpenJDK project is. And just sort of as a side note, I'm really, really happy to see Java 11 with that kind of uptake this early in its life cycle. If you're not taking a look at Java 11, please start doing it. It's really going to be great for you. So we say that this aligns really, really well with our commitment, and it aligns so well that we've already begun migrating all of our Cloud Foundry customers onto Adopt OpenJDK. We've long had a pivotal distribution of OpenJDK that we've shipped and our customers have used for nearly 6 years, but we think Adopt OpenJDK is such a good idea, we're already migrating all those customers. And we also have a commitment internally to make sure that any Java-based project that Pivotal is shipping to customers will also be running on Adopt OpenJDK as quickly as we can do it. All that being said, Adopt OpenJDK being this free and open thing, that's great, right? That's what we believe in. But we also realize there are a bunch of customers out there who really want a commercial relationship with their Java vendor. And for those people, I'm happy to announce the Pivotal Spring Runtime. Pivotal Spring Runtime is a single SKU offering for OpenJDK, Spring, and Tomcat. This is, if you're sitting in this room, almost certainly the stack you're already running, things you already need support for, right? So we're gonna have support for that. If you're already a Pivotal Cloud Foundry customer, great. This gets rolled into your purchase, right? And all of your containers running on Cloud Foundry now have OpenJDK, Spring, and Tomcat support. But we're also aware that many of you aren't exclusively on Pivotal Cloud Foundry, and that's okay, right? You have widely varying environments, but you want a single vendor to support your entire footprint, no matter how you're running it. And so Pivotal Spring Runtime has you covered on this, right? We will support any server-side platform, infrastructure, or cloud that you've chosen to use, right? So with that, let me just say, if you are interested in Pivotal Spring Runtime or our commitment to the open community at Adopt OpenJDK, please feel free to stop by our booth. And if you really want the minutia of OpenJDK distributions, go ahead and find me during the conference, and I'll be happy to bore you to death. Thank you very much.